Hello and welcome, Czar here, and today we're going to be diving back into Ragnarok Online 3. After covering the Pioneer tasks and some of the systems, I already pointed out some of the features that made RO3 feel not really like a true successor to the original, and it's not just about time-gated content or the weird crafting, it's about losing that essence that made RO a beautiful game worth sinking thousands of hours into, right? That sandbox vibe and the social features that made it such a special game. And with phase 1 of the Pioneer task closing, we just got a brand new letter from game producer Yu very thoroughly explaining the next steps that the game is gonna be taking and some of the major changes that the game is gonna be applying. So let's talk about them. Also, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are enjoying the content. It helps me out a lot. Over 99% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel, and I'm really close to hitting 1,000 subscribers, so help me out here. Just press this little button. It's totally free. First off, credit where it's due. The team behind RO, it's being very in touch with the community. You can see from the suggestion part inside of the Discord that they have been trying to answer pretty much every single suggestion that the community has been giving. And now also with producer Yu being very active in talking to the community and responding to feedback, he brings also this beautiful letter that we're gonna be going through. And these are all very good signs. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to what actually gets changed, right? He begins by telling us that the Pioneer Test Phase 1 is about to end on September 13, being the last day of the server open, and also some of the shortcomings that they had to deal with during these couple of weeks, like unclear distribution rules, problems with 10-player dungeon matchmaking, and some other smaller issues, followed by, and this is where we get the actual meat and potatoes of this letter, the response to some of the key points risen by the community and also what is changing. To begin, the first one is understandable that people were complaining about there being too little codes. Since a big part of the community was hoping to get their hands on RO3, everyone was pretty hyped about it, the next installment on the RO franchise, but at the same time, this was a first test. So the server was somewhat smaller, is kind of reasonable, you know, like just smaller server for a more contained test. But they also state that for phase 2, they're gonna have tens of multiples of times the slots that the phase 1 have, and also with a much bigger distribution and a lot more content to it. The next one is the big boy, which is pay to win, which is probably one of the biggest concerns of the community with this game, even more knowing that the team behind RO3 is the same team behind RO Origin, and that one was very leaning towards the pay-to-win side, and also with the history of the last projects from Gravity, it's justifiable cause for concern, right? And I talked in one of my previous videos what were my main fears in terms of pay-to-win from what we could see in the Pioneer test for RO3, which is like having multiple currencies, like having selling material for cards, for upgrading cards or for upgrading gear, and or the pet system that has a box for it as well. And if it's anything like RO Origin, it's very scary. Yu says from day one, they'd never let playing players stomp 1v100 on the battlefield, which, fair enough, that shouldn't be happening. But then he also adds, it's not about monthly passes or free-to-play models. It's about whether we as devs can resist the temptation to cash grab. What? Resist? Resist what, brother? That doesn't exactly inspire confidence, right? Even more if we take into account that most of the revenue is usually not translated to the lower staff or the lower employees. It usually just stays on the hands of the shareholders and the executives, with a few bonuses being directed towards the lower staff. So resisting the temptation to make a worse game that would result in a fast cash is alarming, to say the least, right? Also, you don't really want pay-to-win players to stomp 1v100. It doesn't mean they want stomp 1v5 or 1v10 or 1v20. It's just pointing that out, okay? And even though they say they want payment to be the result of joy, love, and excitement, and not the punishment for being underpowered, this doesn't really give me a sense of security. It feels a bit vague. We just gotta wait and see if they're gonna keep their word. Moving on, he talks about how RO3 isn't a remake, which, yes, I think we all knew that. It's supposed to be a continuation, preserving the magic from the original while also innovating for today's audience. Which honestly, I agree. It's what I was looking for in this game. Not just a reskin of the original Ragnarok with better graphics and smoother gameplay, but a better game all in all together, right? The next 20-year experience, just like they're saying. And so it was a bit weird to me seeing so many systems being changed or just being outright just removed, like the card system being the way it is. And right now, to me, this just looks like a prettier RO, but with less. You know, fewer skills, fewer maps, fewer mobs, fewer challenges, just fewer everything. Of course, this was just a first look, but not having interiors, so few maps, even classes being a bit of a letdown, it's not the best first impression. And he says that RO3 should never be a launch cash grab shutdown type game, which shows that they acknowledge that this was what Gravity was doing and that RO3 should not follow in those footsteps. I surely hope they can take a better look at what made the original such a timeless classic and such a special game and better translate it to RO3. He also points out improvements to matchmaking, to Guild League and 10-player dungeons with voice chat, which is something brand new to the Ragnarok franchise, and auto translation as well, which is a plus, and a friend tab coming on the official version. Also party markers to make it easier to find better companions to do content with. Like just not finding that guy that just sits silent or that doesn't really know how to properly do the thing or just doesn't talk to the team at all. It's a good improvement all in all, since it was lacking in social features a lot in this during the Pioneer test, and RO was a game that thrived a lot in the community and on the social side, so bringing more social features is a plus. The next point to me is a big letdown, which is Dailies. I talked about this already, but during the Pioneer test, it was shown that there were daily activities, and right now it was only limited to MVPs and the 10-player dungeons, but with a lot of other slots for other activities as well. And I personally am not a fan of daily chores in a game. Just like you, the producer says, it should keep you because it's fun, not because it feels like it's a job. So they are making them just simpler. They're just reducing the amount of work you have to do for your daily activities and moving 10-player dungeons to be a weekly activity. I'm not happy about these changes. Not at all. I honestly don't think daily activities are a plus, and they usually just limit the amount of content you can do in a period of time. While also giving that constant feeling of, I need to do this. I need to complete my weekly activities. Otherwise, I'm losing progress. I'm losing time. And it's just a pressure for free, you know? He says that the guiding principle is light dailies, heavy fun, no needless grind, which is funny considering that some of the most important loot is being kept behind this content. You know, like the echoes being in 10-player dungeons and also being tied to auction systems and RNG. So, what? I personally am more of a fan of players choosing what they want to do, when they want to do, and not being told how many times they can do it, how many times they should be able to do it, and relying on luck. And lastly, he mentions that equipment rating is not supposed to necessarily represent power, to avoid that label of high combat power, big PP player, low combat power, freaking noob, you know? And that they just plan to adjust some descriptions so they feel more like suggestions and not a mandatory piece. This is a good point, since there wasn't really a lot of clarity in knowing which equipment was better than other equipments in the original Ragnarok. You were more testing equipment out to see what worked better for you, which is also really fun because that made you also have to find your own build and find your own equipments that made it good for you. But at the beginning, they didn't really have a lot of stats or effects attached to certain pieces of equipment. That happened later on with the later chapters. And since this game is leaning a lot more into the affixes system, kind of like in most ARPGs like Diablo or PoE or Last Epoch and other examples, it's a good thing to have a measure of comparison between equipment, even more when there were examples where an equipment for, let's say, a warlock with a higher strength stat then another equipment with a lower roll in intelligence stat was giving you a higher rating, which is just wrong. So they need to adjust that and also just, you know, make it better altogether, but not take that freedom of letting us try different builds and different types of equipment. I just hope they manage to keep it free and freedom and funny, and just let us just enjoy the game and not be slaves to certain stats and equipment and meta in general. But hey, it's not all bad news. There's actually some really good stuff in here too. They are outright just removing the card leveling system, which is a big plus. This is definitely a win. It's a fantastic thing because it was just, to me, a shallow and pointless grind. Even more when each upgrade just took so many shards at the higher levels and also just gave you such menial stats. Like per upgrade, you were getting such low amounts that it just didn't really make a difference, and you were just wasting a lot of time grinding the materials to get those tiny upgrades. It was very mobile oriented, and it's just a good thing that it's just gone. I just don't know if they're changing it to be more similar to the system in the original RO, or if it's still just gonna be some minor stat upgrades per card. I would honestly enjoy much more if the cards gave you a lot more freedom in build diversity and complemented the way you play, you know, but we're gonna have to wait and see. Also, monsters are now gonna be scattered throughout the map. Woohoo! It's a fucking win, baby. Huge! I've talked in my previous videos about how this one was one of the major points that needed to be fixed, as fixed points just felt really oriented towards that auto combat and mobile game. And just by having monsters just wandering around the map, it just brings so much of that old sandbox feeling, that freedom of having to look around the map for mobs and maybe finding biting a little bit more than you could chew by finding 20 mobs in one corner and just getting your ass destroyed. But that's what made it fun too, you know. It's part of the adventure of Ragnarok, and having that taken away was just a big letdown. So having that back it's a big win. Let's commemorate. Let's fucking go. Also, chat window is also being revamped. It's not gonna go towards that more mobile oriented layout, and it's gonna, I don't know if it's gonna be more similar to what we had in RO, but they say it's gonna be more of that free chaotic with lots of tags, very lively. So hopefully it's gonna be something similar, which is really cool. Very good social feature that we had back in RO, and that should also be kept in here. It was just nice to chat with your guild mates, or just people wandering around you, you know, or your group. It was just a fun feature and should also be implemented. Very nice. And these are all the features that are already being implemented into the game and are already changing, but there are also a couple of things that they're still thinking about. So let's talk about those now. There's the seasonal system, which I honestly have a lot of doubts in an RO game. On one hand, seasons could keep things fresh, stop players from stacking insane gear and just outright just stomping everyone, and also bringing in new content. But in an MMORPG, people get very attached to their characters, to their guilds, to their friends, and to the journey that they had to follow with that character. So I am not sure if that's something that everyone is gonna want, but it has its good sides as well. It's a 50-50 because this game is definitely going more on the ARPG route. So seasonal could definitely help the player base to be refreshing every season and keep people engaged with the game, but it's a matter of trying it out and seeing what's gonna happen, right? Also, build diversity with seasons. In general, it is a positive. It brings new gear and brings more builds, but it also has to be tied to bringing more skill slots. Okay, you see me? I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. Yeah, you. He says right now that third job skills plus one buff slot is enough, but I beg to differ. And again, I don't want just more skills. Lots. I want the hotbar. I want the gold, you know, I want the good thing where I can put consumables, I can put equipment, I can put skills, I can put anything I want in there, you know, and more slots. Because more slots just give you more skill play variety, you know, you can just have more freedom to just mess around with things and mess around with builds and mess around because this is a sandbox game. You know, 5 slots, very limiting. Give us more. Also, solo path to obtain Remnant echoes. This is a big improvement, very necessary. It should make its way into the game because tying obtaining echoes to the 10-player dungeons and the future 5-player dungeons that is coming is very limiting, you know? And again, it's just time gating a piece of gear, time gating a piece of loot. Doing a solo path just gives you more options and doesn't feel as restraining, you know? Having the 5-player, the 10-player dungeon, and a solo option just doesn't feel as overwhelming to get that set pieces of gear and just waiting to roll again to get a good piece of your echoes, you know? And new server ecosystem system. I didn't expect to see this here. This is really cool. But honestly, it could just be what Ragnarok needs to take it to the next level. Right now, RO3 is just RO with prettier skills and graphics. And it needs something that really pushes it to be the next Ragnarok, you know, like the next experience. And adding a livelier environment, imagine something similar to Monster Hunter Wilds or Monster Hunter World. Of course, not the same. These are not the same games, but I mean something that is just more interactive with the player. It's definitely a plus, and it just enhances that sandbox experience even more. You know, also more maps. And then elemental effectiveness. I don't know why this wasn't in the game already. You literally have tables and tables explaining every single element and interactions with each other, multiple weeks with everything thoroughly explained and documented. Just do it. Just do it. Brings another level of skill into the game and team play as well. You're gonna need players with different sets of skills to face certain sets of monsters, you know? So just do it. And also level 99 aura is such a simple thing. You says they cut it because of visual clutter. But why not just bring back /aura? Give us the option to toggle it on and off. Done. It was such a cool feature that you don't really see in other games. And okay, it was a bit of a flex mechanic, but it was just cool to get the aura. It was an extra incentive to keep leveling up. So just give us back. Just give it. Come on. And to wrap up this already very long video, I do like that they're involving the community more. After phase 1, they're going to be holding kind of like elections or voting for the community to choose representatives to attend meetings with the developers and the producers in order to understand what the path the game is following on and to better understand the future of the game and give their insights and name of the community, which is pretty cool. I have my own insight. You can also check this one video here or this one too. So I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Also, please, an international or an EU server. I know gacha laws restrict it, but come on, you don't need the gacha. So EU server, please. And again, guys, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, leave a comment down below. Let's talk about Ragnarok Online 3. I love talking to you guys about this game. It has such a big part in my life, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Czar out.